Welcome back, everybody, to yet another rousing edition of Don't Judge a Book by its Cover. Today we are covering a very cool topic, and one that I hope will go all month long here in the shop. It is Black History Month, of course, and with that we have set up a very comprehensive, very intensive display of black authors and lectures, essays, poetry, theater, all kinds of stuff. And to prove to you that we've got some really cool stuff in the shop, we are offering 25% off of all of our African American and African studies, because, you know, Africa is a huge continent, and we have 2 bookcases dedicated to a lot of the, not all of them, but a lot of the countries in Africa. It's very cool, and it's a full comprehensive type of display. So I hope you guys will come in and check it out, because it's very cool, very interesting, and I'm kind of proud of it. So before we get into the books, I want to read to you something that I found just the other day, actually. A black poet by the name of Nikki Giovanni. She is an activist, a poet, and she is quite an amazing person. And she wrote a poem, and I believe the poem is for the woman that wrote Raisin in the Sun. A woman, I left it over there. I did. My bad. Nope, here it is. Ha. A woman by the name of Lorraine Hansberry. She wrote A Raisin in the Sun. And if you haven't seen the movie with Sidney Poitier, it's beautiful. It's beautifully written, very cool shot, because it all takes place in a apartment in Chicago. It's good stuff. I remember seeing it in when I was in 8th grade maybe, and we read the play, and we watched the movie, and then I got to see it again when I went to college. It was part of a English class that I was taking, and it's just amazing, especially Sidney Poitier. When you watch him act, he's a true master class in acting. He's so good. Anyway, moving on. But I wanted to share this with you. This is called A Rap for Lorraine. She's the North Star, an old oak tree, the duck pond water that the wild birds seek. She's warm to the cold, shepherd to the fold. She made truth both silver and gold. She's our own star, shining from afar, her life a beacon of who we are. It's called A Rap for Lorraine. It's beautiful. I love that. We've got Nikki Giovanni's poetry books here in the shop, so if you come seeking them, I can show you just where to find them. So let's begin in our list of very cool titles for you guys to peruse through. The first of which is My Bondage, My Freedom by Frederick Douglass. This is on the New York Times best-selling books, 100 books to read in your life. If you're going to read 100 books in your life, this must be one of those books, because he details out his life as a child, and his being brought up in slavery, and how he got out of it, how he educated himself. The language, I will admit, that is a little thick, because it is harking back to a time where educated peoples spoke a completely different way. And this is one of them. I had some difficulty getting through there. I had to read it over and over till I got the clear, concise meaning, because we in this generation are very direct. This book, not so much. So, but it's still a good read, because you're getting everything direct from the man himself. It's a very good read. All right, the next is Cornel West, Keeping the Faith. I like Cornel. It's very cool. I like listening to him talk. He's fun. This one is also on the New York Times 100 books to read. Norman Mailer said that this book was an excellent read. And it's called Man-Child in the Promised Land by Claude Brown. Man-Child in the Promised Land. That's good. Of course, we have Barack Obama's Dreams for My Father. We also have The Audacity of Hope. It's revitalizing and reliving the American dream. Very cool. Alice Walker, if you don't know who Alice Walker is, she wrote The Color Purple. And this is her autobiography, Same River Twice. It's a beautiful book. I really liked reading through it, actually. It was good. There she is on the back. She looks fun. I'd like to actually sit down and have a discussion. I'd like to sit down with a lot of these people and sit and have real in-depth discussions on their books. Of course, I like to talk about books, which is why I'm doing this. So, another one is Home to Harlem by Claude McKay. This is also on the 100 Times reading list. Red Summer. This one is by Cameron McWhirter, if I can say that right, McWhirter. This is the summer of 1919. It is right after World War I is done, and our boys come back, and the African American soldiers that were doughboys, they were called American GIs, were called doughboys at the time. They came back to a different kind of world. So, and they dealt with a lot of Jim Crow laws and that type of thing. But in Harlem, things were a little bit different. They discovered something very, very dramatic, very, very cool, actually, which started the running for the civil rights movement. It helped start the push for equal rights. So, it is called The Red Summer, the Summer of 1919, and the Awakening of Black America. Very cool read. I really recommend this one. It's fascinating. I like it. It's fascinating. Oh, here we go. Up from Slavery by Booker T. Washington. This is on a classics list. Booker T., very cool man, very interesting man. Fascinating when you get right down to it. Langston Hughes, really appreciated this man. He wrote on the back, Washington's story of himself as half seen by himself is one of America's most revealing books. And Booker T was born on a slave plantation. He was born a slave on a plantation in Virginia. And he works himself out of misery and depravity and really creates a life for himself. It's a really, really good read. And then one of my favorite authors of all time is Richard Wright. And here's his biography, Demonic Genius. Richard Wright, if you don't know who he is, I assume most of you know who he is, but if you don't know, Richard Wright wrote Native Son, and just so many good books. And we have a lot of them here in the shop, so I definitely encourage you to come in and pick those up. A few other books that we have, and this is not a comprehensive list of everything that we have in the store. This is just a small drop in the bucket. I have probably about 500 books here that are screaming to be read. And here, a few more of them. Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. I read that book when I was in 8th grade. It's by Mildred Taylor. We read it in class. Actually, in 7th grade, we read that in class. And it was very, very much an eye-opener. And I really related to the little girl in the book. She lived on a farm. And when I read that book, we had just moved to New York, and I had lived on a farm previously, and so I really related to farming and going into the garden and plucking corn and that type of thing. I did that. I got it. It was very cool. Anyway, let's see. We've got the autobiography of Martin Luther King Jr., always a good read. We also have other books on Martin Luther King. Revolution of Conscience is one of them. It's by Greg Moses. King, a biography, and that's by Richard Lewis. It's also a very good read. And we've got a couple of other ones that I'm not... oh, My Soul is Rested. That's on the speeches of Dr. King. So, very cool. Anyway, moving on. Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. I love Zora Neale Hurston. She came out with one of my favorite poems. And when I read it, I was in my early 20s and kind of a little bit lost. But I read this in a book once. She says that I am like a cracked plate, broken like a moon. Oh, this beautiful. I love that. I love that so much. Anyway, if you haven't seen the movie Their Eyes Were Watching God, it was a made-for-TV movie with, what was her name? I'm drawing a blank, but it was a really good film. Of course, I say that now that I can't remember the actress's name in it. Anyway, they stuck pretty well to the story, which I was very fond of, and I thought that the book and the movie both were beautifully done. So, there's that. The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Bit of a hard read because it will really rip your heart out. So full of emotion, and Toni Morrison is a genius when it comes to writing. I recommend any of her books. And then you also have, of course, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. We have a couple of copies here on the shelf. We also have many of Maya Angelou's books. We have a couple of her poetry books. We have Singin' and Swingin' and Getting Married Like Christmas. It's fun. That's a fun read. Let's see. Roots by Alex Haley, of course, is always a good read. That's upstairs in the fiction room. Native Son by Richard Wright, we already talked about. That's upstairs in the fiction room. Waiting to Exhale by Terry McMillan. The book is good. The movie is good. The book is better. We also have that here in the shop, as well as Devil in a Blue Dress by Walter Mosley, and I like that book. Bit of a hard read. It's gritty. It's a gritty read because it's about about guys in the ghetto, but it's still a really good read. The Bondwoman's Narrative by Henry Louis Gates Jr. That's actually a very excellent read, and it's in our historical fiction. So if you want it, I can find it for you. Your Blues Ain't Like Mine by B.B. Moore Campbell. We have that, and we have a couple of other books by her as well. And of course, we have many copies of A Lesson Before Dying by Ernest J. Gaines. So there you have it. And if you come in here and you want to get something that is by an African American author and help celebrate Black History Month, just ask. I have the African American Book of Lists. This is if you are struggling to find something that you know you want to read but you don't quite know how to get there. This I can help, and this is one of those things. This goes over history and politics, population and demographics, education, culture, military, sports, music, literature, arts, the media, business personalities, religion, and inspiration. And we have so many books in here, and they're all for 25% off all through the month of February. Okay? So there you have it. There it is! It's very cool. I say cool a lot. I need to stop doing that. I really do. Such is life. Okay. So there it is. We have a sunny day. It's a little nippy outside, but hey, it actually feels like winter instead of, the death knell for us all. That we're out of the polar vortex, so you gotta get out while you still can. Come on down to the bookshop. We are here till 8 o'clock tonight, open again at 10 a.m. on Sunday till 6. And we're having fun. We're all warm and toasty on the inside here. Of course, I've got my pretty little scarf and everything, so I'm perfectly fine. We hope you'll come out and see us. If not, we'll see you on the flip side. Everybody have a fantastic and great weekend. We'll see you then.